Here's the other end of our stock, if we want to call it that, wiring harness for the fog lights that I'm just going to cut here. Left enough pigtails of the connector to where I can go back later if I want. I'm going to strip the wires back. Now I have the harness coming out of the fog lights ready. So now this is the harness going into the HID setup, which I'm also just going to clip. Okay, remember, we're not using the white wire. We're just going to use our blue and our brown. Got some nice wires to work with. Before we go to join these together, what do we need to do? That's right, put our shrink tube on first. And since I seem to have more here, I'm going to slide these down onto these wires. That looks like there's far enough back. Okay, our blue wire was power. It worked when we had it hooked up to the brown wire of the HID harness. Now, some people have mentioned that they would love to see me solder the wires first. In other words, put solder on the end of this and solder on the end of this before I join them together. That's probably a good idea. But I'm going to do it this way. Take this, just do a little twist in here. Part of me wants to open that up a little bit. Those of you that have seen some of my other videos have seen me use my, we'll call it a soldering helper. It's just a piece of house wiring with a couple of alligator clips on it. Okay, this is our power side. Some say he doesn't know how to solder. Yet none of his electrical connections have failed. I will do this though. Lots of you have said, use flux. Here it is, kids. A little bit of flux. Just a little. It will help the solder get into the joint a little better. Electrical connections are important. In fact, I think a very high percentage of electrical failures are due to connection problems. So if you don't create a good connection, then it's going to create a problem. All right, I'll let this heat up, and actually what I'm going to do before I touch down there is I'm going to put a little bit on the tip after it gets warm. There we go. The flux made it awesome. So that was a fantastic suggestion for those of you that were wanting that. Good solder joints are shiny. And that one looks pretty shiny. Oh yeah, that's a very strong joint. Good old-fashioned lighter. Done. I believe you've had success a second time. Not sure what to do with this. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to wrap this up with some electrical tape. Call it done. It's like it never happened. I'm going to give this one more test just to be sure that everything works like it's supposed to. And all I'm going to need to do is hook up a ground from this ballast, and that'll tell me whether or not everything is ready to go and hooked up. And if you just had if you didn't have a power probe and you just had an alligator clip, you could do that and hook it up. Well, someplace on the body here would be good. You just basically need some place for this to ground in order to determine if everything's working as it should. So far, so good. Okay, now we're past that part of it. So I guess what we need to do is, well, one, figure out what we're going to do with these bulbs. I'm going to have to get these mounted inside those housings. I'm also going to need to get the housings mounted inside the bumper. But I need to figure out where I'm going to mount this relay, where I'm going to tie in my ground. I want to see if I can mount this relay assembly first, sort of sneak it down in here like this, and I want to get it like up as close in here as possible because the bumper's not in here now. But if this sticks out too far, then I'm going to have to remount it. So I think like right there is a good spot. It's marking its location. I'm going to drill through the metal. I don't know if my drill is going to make it. Oh, almost. She needs a new battery. Chosen fastener, I got basically a screw and a nut that I'm going to use. Wasn't going to use anything self-tapping here. Oh, it needs to be just a little bit bigger. Close enough. All right, get the nut on the back, screw in the front. It's not going anywhere. It's also helping to keep these wires sort of in check. I don't want to pinch them. But yeah, I mean, this seems all nice and tidy to me. I also took the wires for the ballast and routed them through that hole. Now the ballast lives over here. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take this ground and put it right here. I mean, it's right there, but I don't think that hole is big enough. So I'm going to drill that hole slightly larger, and hopefully it'll be able to accommodate, because I'd rather do that than try to redo this connection, because this is actually a really good connection here. So I'm going to drill that a little bit larger and see if I can get that hooked up. And then guess I'm going to mount my ballast in here like this with the adhesive that's been provided. I'm not like super excited about that, but I'll clean this area up real good and do everything possible to make sure that that adhesive stays. But I don't think this is going to be a problem up in here. In fact, I think that's a really nice location for it. I think I'll have plenty of wire if I need to, because if I go to remove the bumper again, I'm going to need to deal with those electrical connections, so I'll need some way to get to them. Let's see if we can't make these holes just a tiny bit larger. Let's see if that's big enough. Just. Since we have to do the other side and the bolt is the same size, now that we know that that's big enough, just happen to have the other side right here. Let's make this one to match. Good enough. Nice solid ground. I'm happy with that. All right, now comes the part where I'm going to take the stock bulbs out of these assemblies and install these HIDs. A lot of this we're not even going to have to use. So I'm just going to sort of cut it out. All right, this part of the harness I am not using. I only need this. I also don't need this rubber part. I kind of don't care that that stuff is there right now, because apparently this is all I need. I'm going to leave this in here for the moment because these bulbs are sensitive, and I want to make sure that that's in good shape before I put it in. But I'm not going to be overly concerned with these at the moment. So I will open up the housing here. That just clips on there. It's just a little push clip. And as I said, this is going to be the adjustment, and it's up and down is what it will do. We will have the ability to adjust it when it's done, but this screw is the one we removed to get the backing off of here. You don't really have to take that screw all the way out from what I'm seeing. Looks like one of the little plastic mounts came out. I want to make sure that that gets back in where it's supposed to be. So now to get to our bulb, we have to remove quite a few things here. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws in order to get this off of here. As I said earlier, normally this gasket would be placed in between here, but that's not the case this time. Also, the spring clip is held down by the ground and this screw right here that holds the bulb in. This is gonna have to come out. Don't lose that spring. Spring. Bulb. Save this screw. Thing is, without that ground connection, this screw won't hold the spring in place, I found. So I think I found, yeah, I do. I think I found what I believe to be a good sized washer to hold this thing in place. This is the part I haven't quite figured out yet, because this stock connector, of course, comes through this hole. And it's weather packed and everything, which is great. Here's our old bulb, which I'm gonna save because these bulbs come in handy. All right, so I'm gonna save that bulb for a rainy day. It almost looks like I'm gonna have to mess with the adjustment in order to get a little more room here. There's a lot of modifications to make these HID. You might consider just using them like they are. Don't want to lose the screw or the spring. I don't know which way to go with this. Looks like we're just going to have to cut this connection. Now we have our HID bulb. Try not to handle it too much. It does go into this assembly here. And it does stay down. That does fit. It barely fits, but it fits. So here's the dilemma that I face. These obviously need to come through this housing, and I'd like to, keep as much of the weather packing stuff as possible. So I'm wondering if I can undo these connectors. I'd be able to pull the wires out and just insert the wires through here. If that's it, I'm golden. It looks like there's a little lock here. Okay, well, I made the executive decision not to mess with these connectors, and I was just going to cut the wires and install it. But then I realized something. This old bulb sits way down in here, like so. And when you put the back cover on, it leaves plenty of room. This bulb, however, is not only longer going forward, but it's also longer in the back. And if you take a look here, you can see that it's going to stick up out of the back. So all the time that I'm going to be spending cutting wires may very well be a waste of time. Because when I go to put this backing on here, like this, it's never going to happen. So that leads me to a place to where I am going to have to make a decision. Do I go back and put the old bulbs back in? Well, no. I mean, we've come this far. And it doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot of room between here either, because remember, this will be like this. So there's not going to be a whole lot of room there. So I guess what I'm going to need to do is come back here, cut a hole in the back of this, and grind this out to where this will fit in. And if I have to go that far and make that big a hole, there's plenty of room for this connector to go through. It's going to be tight though, because it's going to be kind of smashed up against the back there. And here's the other part. I can only open it this far. That's as far as it will let me open it. So that's about as far as it goes. So if you want to switch these to HID, you got to modify. And I'm also going to have to take this. If I want this to have any kind of weather ability, I'm going to have to like pack the back of this with RTV or something to keep the stuff out of getting in here and contaminating the bulb. I'm going to start cutting and grinding a hole in the center of this to try and accommodate this bulb. Okay, I'm sitting here trying to come up with a plan. This is the way it will all be together. The more I look at this, the more I think that the best course of action, drill through both of these. Because if I leave this space here and I squish these wires over like this, up inside that space, that's not going to be good. I would feel much better if the wires were coming all the way through the back here. And yes, that creates something of a security breach to dirt, grime, whatever else wants to enter there. But as I said, I'm going to try to figure out some kind of seal in this area for this bulb. It'll be a big challenge to change these bulbs, so I hope they last. But if I'm going to install this HID kit in this fog light kit, well, it looks like that's what I'm going to have to do. All right, here's my setup. I've got a unibit that I believe will get me large enough to make the hole. If not, I've got a standby for a larger one. Now, this is the back. This is the part that's actually going to touch the bulb, or potentially touch the bulb. So I'm going to drill through it first. This being a stepped drill bit, the bigger hole is going to be towards the back. I've got my block of wood in a vise. I've got it clamped down with a clamp, so hopefully it doesn't want to walk around during the process. I am wearing my safety glasses. Before I start drilling, I'm going to drill this right in the center. I try to get this as close to the center as possible. I'm just going to drill straight down through both things down into the wood. Then I've got the bulb over here that I'm going to check periodically. I think the first step is to make a hole large enough to accommodate our bulb. A little bit of oil helps you from burning up your drill bits. In my case, I got transmission fluid because I had extra. Doesn't matter, you can choose transmission fluid oil. I don't want to go any further. I think this is enough based on what I'm seeing, because if we look at the back of our bulb, I believe it's going to fit through there nicely. I do want to do a bit of deburring, which I can kind of do on this side by going in reverse real quick. This may or may not work out. Yep, worked fine. Cool. But this other one here, I'm going to have to sneak in here with my angle die grinder. Alright, just going to clean this off with a little bit of compressed air. And I think that's where I need to be to get this to accommodate the wires. I'm still going to have to cut those wires. I'm not going to make this hole big enough to get the connector through. I'm just not going to do it. I think it's much better to see what I can do to try to seal this area as best I can behind the bulb, but I think that's about the best we can hope for in this case. So let's get this cleaned up, let's get those wires cut, and let's see if we can get that bulb inside this housing. Let's keep moving here. We, no matter what, are going to have to get that spring down in there to hold the bulb in place. And it goes in like this. I'm just going to take this screw and get it started. Put it under there. It's got a little slot where it fits in. Not a whole lot of wiggle room. Perhaps enough. I don't want to cut these wires. I'm going to cut them in about the middle. That'll leave me plenty of space. and I don't want to do this because this is like a shielded wire. Given the circumstances, I really have no choice. There's a square slot and a round slot. There's a square and a round here. I'm sure you can figure it out. Almost looks as though I might be better off taking this off or loosening it up. Seems to be secure. So we've gotten it that far. Yay! Have our gasket. Make sure that gets in place. As you can see, that was the exact right thing to do. Wasn't going to happen any other way. It fits, but it's not sealed. I'm thinking some RTV or something in there. That's also keeping the bulb from like going anywhere, but it looks like I nailed it as far as the location. So as long as we're dead in the center, we've got enough. And I feel good that these wires aren't all pinched. These little rubber pieces, well, don't really need those. Blue RTV. I'm just gonna sneak in here and do what I tell you not to do and sort of frost the cake. Now I put that plug back in there. That way I only had to seal up those two small holes where the wires went through. But I believe once this cures up, it will be sufficient protection against the elements. At least that's my hope. I'll solder those wires up and hopefully we'll be done. Well, now that we have those wires all squared away, I'm just going to put this other assembly on here. Bring it all down in, install my screw that holds it all together. Part of me thinks that that should sit down in there a little bit more. Looks like putting both of these plastic pieces on the light assembly first is the way to go. Like so. They both fit down into those slots right there. Those have to fit down in those slots. Then you can install the screw that holds it all together. Now we have a completed assembly with an HID bulb in it. Now just because I mess with this a bunch, I'm gonna stick it on the vehicle, plug it in, and see if it works. Looks like it's working to me. Welcome back. Now I've been a busy little bee while the camera's been off. As you can see, I have hooked up and tested both of these. You can see my ground on that side. I routed the wires, same as on this side, just up behind that support, and brought my ground up to this point, and my ballast is going to be inserted in there. But before I did that, I wanted to make sure everything worked. The other side got the exact same treatment with the light to try and install the bulb. So that is successful. And I came up with something else. So also during the break, I kept thinking to myself, you're never going to forgive me if I let this thing roll out of here with, well, potentially illegal fog lights that don't turn off with the bright lights. I did some little bit of research, and this is the headlight switch here. I opened this up and I found out which wire is hot with the headlights. And that is down here, this red with a blue tracer is the wire that goes directly to the low beams of the headlights. Now here's something interesting. When I checked it, its voltage is about, I'd say almost 2 volts less than battery voltage. So there's a voltage drop somewhere, I suspect, within the HID system, the way I've got those set up. So those do eat a bit of juice. However, when you turn on the high beams, the power to this wire goes away. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to splice my power feed wire into this wire so that it is hooked up in such a way that when the high beams are on, they turn off automatically. Like I said, unfortunately my harness didn't come complete, so I wasn't able to, do it the factory way. However, I do believe I'll be able to get by with this. So let's splice the power wire into this, and since we got everything wired up, we'll check it, and once that's all done, we'll cut the holes in our bumper, and then pretty much after that, it's a matter of tidying things up. Unplug our connector, the power feed, and given that this doesn't need to be nearly this long, we'll give it a little bit of space, but we don't need to give it a lot. Since it only needs to go to here, I can cut off a significant amount, still be okay. There's the old part, just in case I'm going to keep this, because we don't know if we'll need that connector or not. Now this is really just powering up the switch in the relay. I'm hoping this isn't going to overload things and blow the headlight fuse. I'm really hoping that. Red wire blue tracer. It's our guy. I got an idea before we actually commit to this. I think this electrical connection will suffice for now, just so that we can test the theory and see if this works. Now, to give this thing every advantage, I'm going to start the engine. How you like me now? Red wire, blue tracer coming down here. Just make sure that it works with the headlights on and off to make sure you got the right wire. Your harness may be slightly different than mine, and if that's the case, then your results may vary. Finish up with a little bit of electrical tape. Because this is so tight and I'm not going to be able to get in here that well, I have to do this kind of in pieces. I don't feel so bad about this because this isn't necessarily going to be exposed to the elements like, say, a connection in the engine compartment would be. So I have less reservations about doing it this way. I'm a big fan of shrink tube, not so much of electrical tape. Not for stuff like this, but I think in this case that'll do. I'll be honest, it's a mystery even to me how we are going to accomplish this. And just to give you an idea of where we need to cut, and that is so that when we install the light we have access to the adjuster and the screw, because we'll need that in order to remove and install this light. In fact, I even think I'm probably going to have to take this screw out for now, so that we can put the bracket on, and then we're probably going to insert the fog light from the outside. It's fairly thick plastic, and you don't want to cheese it up because it'll look stupid if you do. So I'm going to first try a utility knife and see how far I get with that. I might cut it roughly with a utility knife and then come back with something to deburr it with, like my angle die grinder or something of that nature, to try and clean up any of the edges. But this could be a challenge. I think what Honda wants is they've got like these marks here, and that usually means they want you to drill something. So you drill holes, and they might want you to come in here with a small, like maybe a pneumatic saw, something of that nature. That would probably work really well. However, I don't have one. So you kind of got to work with what you got sometimes. I just need to be careful in here that I don't hurt that post. Now the trick to cutting with a utility knife is not to go all out when you first start cutting. The trick is to just do fine little cuts. And then make them deeper and deeper as you go. Well, we got that part. Now, there certainly is a lot of risk to doing it this way, but it seemed to work. Now let's put that bracket in and see if we can install the light. Yeah, I'm just going to take that single screw out of the light here. Bracket will go on like this, and it looks like, yep, that will go right on. The kit came with these screws, by the way. They're just self-tapping. With the absence of that plastic here, this actually gives it some structural integrity. Fantastic. Let's see if we can get the light installed. Okay, our light should just feed through. There's those little tabs on the bottom that have to fit in to the mounting. Okay, now that it's slipped in its mount, I'll try to drive the screw in. And it looks like we could actually install this without having to completely remove the screw because of the slot. All right, that's one installed. Let's see how it looks. I consider that acceptable. I mean, you've got the access up there that you need. The rest of it looks good, and all the rough edges are pretty much hidden by the light itself. You have to really get at an angle to see it. But this will all be dark up here when it's installed, so you won't necessarily be able to see anything there. But this top that we cut here allows us access to the adjuster screw and gives us the ability to remove the bulb assembly so that we can change the bulb if we need to at some point. Starting to come together. Let's do the other side. We're almost there, kids. Our ballast is still hanging loose. We need to remedy that situation. and my intention is to mount it right here. Now this has some, I don't know, some sort of covering on the back of it. Just held on with some adhesive. Very easily remove it. And that's a nice, shiny, clean surface for adhesive. So I'm going to do the one side. Now, our surface here is not so clean. So what I'll do is I've got an alcohol-based cleaner here, window cleaner, if you're curious, that I'm just gonna use to clean the area. Anytime you stick something to something else, any dirt that's in there is gonna contaminate the connection. And I'd rather hard mount this up in here, but you know, honestly, I think this will be okay. At least I hope it is. They provided it to me that way, so let's just go with it. If I can catch a corner of this thing. There we go. Find a nice happy spot and commit. If you're wondering what this is, it's actually a sensor for the SRS. In the event of a collision, it's got a little thing inside of it that moves forward and makes contact and causes the airbags to go off. FYI, don't mess with this. Wires are in a nice place. You know, they're nice and out of the way. Everything seems really tidy, and I like that, especially with my wiring. So let's move over to the other side, do the same thing. Here we are on the right side or passenger side of the vehicle. This electrical connection is not used. I'm just going to let it fester there, I suppose. But this, these mini ballasts actually, you know, are much easier to work with because they're so much smaller. You know, so they do have that advantage in that they are much smaller. Let's tidy up this harness a little bit and be done. This is messy. I don't like messy. The kit came with zip ties. I got a bunch of my own zip ties that I'm going to use. I think one of the first things I'll do is shorten it up. These holes are really convenient. I'm hoping this won't interfere with stuff. Now I know it won't. Let's put this front bumper on. Before I do that, I almost forgot something. These little speed clips. Channel locks on the one side, ratchet on the other, and pray. Here we go. It's just gonna happen. So, now, for lack of a better word, deal with it. Not gonna lie, ain't much left here for this to go into. But if you have something that's salvageable, you can open it up like that with a pocket screwdriver, maybe you can get it back down into a point where you can run the bolt in and it won't spin all over the place. I'm guessing that's not very likely. At least that's the way it's been for me. So if I'm not able to get that in there, actually I've got it in upside down. If I'm not able to get this to tighten up or work or any of that, I'm just gonna call it a day and just leave it be. Because ultimately I'll have to replace this piece and everything else, but the bumper's not gonna fall off. Let's just put it that way. Now, for what I hope are obvious reasons, you need to make sure you have everything plugged in before you put the bumper on. Now, I like having this much extra because that means I could take the bumper off, disconnect it, or if I need to take the light out, I'm going to have all that extra lead in order to get that in and out of there. The final test before I do the install. Alright, it's going to be difficult to two-hand this bumper and try to show you stuff at the same time. This right here needs to slide into this area when it goes together. So this, as you can see, has a little bit of wear to it, but it needs to fit into that slot on both sides. Also, you need to fish things up around this connection. And now that we've gotten that fastener out, we should be okay with that. So we don't have to worry about that. At least I hope we don't. But those are the things to watch out for. Also, we want to make sure that our wires aren't going to get tangled up in the process. I just got to tidy it up. I think it looks pretty cool with those lights on it. Let's put at least one of these in up here just so we don't drop it on our heads. I'm going to start from underneath. That one was missing. We can try this one, but I'm not hopeful. Yeah, it's not tightening up anymore. At least I won't lose the clip. All right, let's run this one in. This one has a 8mm head on it. Just an FYI, the fender liner goes on the inside of the bumper on the bottom, and on the outside after it crosses this point. Just to keep you in the loop here, and I think I might have yep. There we go. It is now. Same drill over here. By the way, the outer quarter goes over top of the bumper goes underneath. Good enough. Our final piece that gets installed. It's got its own set of plastic clips, not to mention the other 3 that go on the upper bumper mount. These clips get old. Sometimes they break. If you're gonna do this job, you might wanna pick up like a fistful of these at the dealer. There are aftermarket clips, but they just aren't the same size. I think this means we're done out here. As far as the wiring, it's not in the way of anything. It seems totally out of the way. In fact, what I like is, there's the fuse for the fog lights right there. Yeah, the way everything's routed. In fact, even the way this is routed. I still need to put that grommet in place around that heater control cable, which I'll do right now. But outside of that, I'm gonna leave this alone. I could zip tie this up, but I really don't see the point. It's routed so well that it's not in the way, and it doesn't look like it's gonna get tangled up in anything. That's good enough. It's not gonna be perfect. It's got a wire sticking out of it that it didn't have before. All right, now let's tie up the loose ends in the interior. The only thing we really have is this ground wire. It seems to be like everywhere. It's a bit long. Of course, I'd rather have it a bit long than a bit short. So I'll just zip tie that up out of the way so it doesn't get in my way. Now that we know our switches and everything work, just gonna push those down into place. Ooh, it's kind of a problem. It's sticking. Cruise works fine. This one, however, kind of a problem. Yeah, guess what? Works fine over here. So I couldn't have it where I wanted it. Oh well. At least I got it. Install our lower fuse cover. This goes in from the bottom and then up. There we go. Right, now that they're all installed, let's check the alignment and call it done.
Just gonna tweak it a little bit, bring them down.
That seems good. Personally, I think they look pretty cool. I hope they help me see better in bad weather. Hey, guess what? It's dark outside. We can go for a little cruise. This is just regular headlights. These are our auxiliary lights. So there's both. They're pretty awesome. They light up a lot. Without, with, without. That's pretty sweet. All right, let's see if anybody flashes us. Yeah, we can kind of see everything. Nope, no flash in there. Definitely see a lot more. Yeah, I'll admit that was a bit of work. A bit more than I anticipated. Obviously some modifications to the kit are required to install it legally. And there are other modifications if you are going to install an HID kit on top of just the fog lights. So if you're just doing the fog lights, pretty much you're done when you get the harness routed out behind the bumper, because all you have to do at that point is install cut out the holes in the bumper and install the lights and plug everything in. But because I did things the way I did with the HID, I had to go through those extra modifications. So you can take that however you like. You could pick up a set of these with amber lenses and just have just a straight up deal and not have to mess with any of this if you don't want to. But if you're industrious and you like HID lights, well, you're going to have to go through what I went through. And it's the red wire with the blue tracer on the element that is the headlights. And if the voltage is too low, like say below 12 volts, I think it was maybe around 10 volts, they won't turn on. So they need at least 12 volts to run. Keep that in mind. That's why plugging directly into the fuse box seemed to work better. For whatever reason, I got a voltage drop in the headlights. Not sure where that's coming from, not sure why that is, but there isn't battery voltage going through there. Perhaps sometime I'll trace that down, but today is not that day. It's been a long day. Come on, you were here with me. I'm trying to think of anything else that I should impart to you about this job. Take your time, be patient, know that you're going to be a while. It took me a while, partly because I'm documenting the process, partly because of the modifications that were required in order to get this to work correctly. Weigh your options out, give yourself plenty of time to do this if you want to do it yourself. And once again, you could do away with the HID kit and just go with the straight up fog lights and you'd be good to go. I'd like to thank my friends at Motorfiend for providing me with this fog light kit and the HID kit to go with it. I believe they also have the mini ballast now available instead of the larger ballast, so if you have space considerations, that's something to be considered. Other than that, well, it's in the video, and I'm sure you'll give me comments about stuff, but hey, I went back, I made it to where it turns off with the bright lights, which is as it should be. And it also turns off when I turn off the headlights, so if I forget and leave them on, they won't stay on. They wired up the other way. That circuit was hot all the time, and if I would have left them on, they would have been on. Hopefully I wouldn't have noticed, but what if it's just a gray day and I'm just, you know, parked somewhere? I could drain your battery fairly quickly. So it's a good idea to wire it up the way I wired it up. I hope that test drive was fun for you also, so you got a chance to see what they look like. I'm pleased with the result. I'm very pleased with the result. I've always liked having auxiliary lighting on my vehicles. It's just kind of how I am. So let's close it up. Hey, if you have automotive questions, first thing to do, head to EricTheCarGuy.com. I'll put a link in the description to make it simple for you. We will do our very best to try and help you with that automotive issue. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be reached on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter, and I close with be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I'll see you in the dark.